What is going on, everyone? My name is Anson. Welcome back to another Discord related tutorial. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to set up analytics for kicking and muting. So right now we already have analytics for banning members, but we want to make it so that we can have it for kicking as well as muting as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go into the Discord bot project because this is where we're going to start first. I'm actually going to go ahead and create a new entity, and I'm actually going to call this moderation log.ts. Okay, so I actually thought about this before I started working on the guild ban analytics, and essentially what I'm going to do right now is instead of just removing the guild ban log entity completely, we're going to slowly migrate away from guild ban log, and we're going to have just one moderation log. And what this entity is going to represent is it's literally just going to be the same exact thing. It's going to have the same types of properties. The only difference is that it's just going to have an additional property called type, and it's going to be of type ban, kick, or mute. Okay, so whenever you mute a user, it's going to create an instance of moderation log, but the type is going to be mute. When you ban a user, it's going to create the same moderation log instance in the database, but the type is going to be ban, and same thing for kick as well. Okay, I actually think this is a lot better. So instead of just creating multiple entities, we can just create one entity, and we'll have all of the same properties. I do think that at some point we might need to expand the entities quite a little bit. If it's like a ban entity, we probably might need to do stuff such as, if we want to extend it, for example, if we want to have like additional things such as having a feature where we can temporarily ban someone, we might need to migrate from that. I'm not too sure, but I think for now this is just fine. Because what I'm ultimately thinking is, if we were to implement something like a temporary ban, it would probably be better if we had its own independent guild ban log, because then we could have like the date the user should be unbanned, and we can just like create a cron job, schedule that cron job for the user. But honestly, I think it'll be I don't think that's going to be necessary, because then you're going to have to go through fetching a bunch of guild ban logs. So I think we'll leave it alone like this for now. Okay, so what we're going to do is, for the moderation log, let's go ahead and create a new entity. And I'm just going to label this table name as moderation logs, like that. And the class will be just moderation log. And it's literally just going to have the same properties, okay? So it's going to have an ID. Let me go ahead and import all of these right up here. So it's going to have a primary generated column and ID. It's going to have the guild ID. Instead of banned member ID, we're actually just going to change this to member ID. So this will member ID like that. So this will just represent the action. This mod action was taken on which member. So if we banned a user, to know which user we banned, we would reference this member ID. Issued by is the same thing. The reason would also be the same thing as well, and then issued on as well, pretty much the same thing. And we'll also add one more property. So let me actually do this. I'm going to go ahead and create a type.ts file inside utils, and I'm going to create a new custom type called moderation action type, and it's either going to be a ban, a kick, or a mute. Obviously, if you have other actions that your bot does, you can add that over here. Like if you have like something like, I don't know. I think Discord has a new feature called timeout, which I think is, I'm not sure what that feature is, to be honest. I've never really used it. But yeah, for now we'll leave it with just these three. So we'll add a new column. Okay, and we'll just say type, and then it's just going to be a moderation action type. Cool. All right, so now let's go ahead and implement a simple kick command. It's going to mimic this ban command. So what I'll do is, I'm honestly just going to copy this whole ban command.ts file. Yeah, I'm going to just copy this whole file and change up a couple stuff. So kick command.ts, paste that over here. And we just got to change up a couple things. So we'll change it from ban command to kick command, of course. We'll get rid of the ban log repository for now. We're gonna go ahead and change it from ban to kick, of course. Okay, the category mod is gonna stay the same. Let's see. The arguments will be the same as well, right? Because we're gonna do the prefix kick, and then the ID of the member, and then we're also going to get the reason as well. Okay. The logic will also be the same too. So const member equals blah blah blah. We'll fetch the member, and then instead of just doing member.ban, we'll do member.kick. So member.kick. Seems like we cannot provide a reason for kick. Oh wait, actually we could. It's just that that's the only parameter you can pass in. So there we go. Okay, cool. So instead of ban log repository, it's going to be moderation log repository instead. Let's go ahead and get that. So private read only mod log repository. We'll type annotated. Moderation log is the entity. And we're going to call get repository moderation log. Now, before we change anything else, we do need to make sure we go into the index.ts file, and we have to go ahead and add the moderation log entity to that array right over here. But before I do anything else, I'm actually just going to create an index.ts file, also known as a barrel file, which all it does, this barrel file, is it just imports everything and exports everything. That's literally what it does. So we're going to import guild ban log and then export it. But what we're going to do is we're going to create an array called entities. So this is similar to what we did in the Nest.js application. Okay, we created this barrel file that exports everything. So we're going to import guild configuration. And last but not least, we will import moderation log as well. There we go. So now, every single time we create a new entity, all we got to do is just import and export it in here. And then we could just go ahead and just, instead of just manually importing inside this index.ts file, we can just import entities, and that'll just be updated for us. So we don't have to import every single entity in the same file. Okay. Cool. So I think that's pretty much all we need to do there. So that entity was registered moderation log. So the table should have been created in the database. Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and instead of creating an instance of guild ban, we're going to create an instance of mod log. Okay. So this mod log repository, you're going to notice that a lot of properties are going to be the same. I'm just passing member ID. Okay, we do need to specify the type. So the type is just going to be kick. Okay, and then we call mod log repository.save. Let me change this to mod log instead of guild ban. Okay, and there we go. So that's pretty much it. It was very easy because we already had majority of the stuff done. It's the same logic as banning. Okay, so if I were to go into my Discord server right now, I could just easily kick a user. Well, let me actually just first join the Discord server. Let me do that. All right, so right now we're currently in the guild. You can see right over here. And let me go into my SQL database. Okay, so this is the database. If I do show tables, you'll see that the moderation logs table is there. Okay, so there should be nothing. Empty set. Now let's go ahead and kick the user. So let me go ahead and copy the ID. $kick the ID, and I'll just go ahead and say spamming and advertising Discord servers without permission. So I just kicked the user from the guild. Okay. And if I go ahead and select it, you're going to see that it gives me the record that we just have in the database. So literally is the same exact thing as the guild bans. Okay, it just only has an additional column called type, which is going to be useful. Okay, so now instead of creating like 3, 4, 5 entities just for a moderation action, we can create one and specify a type. And it's actually good because when we actually render the analytics on the database, or I'm sorry, not the database, when we actually render the analytics on the chart on the front end, right? Because we're going to do that. We're going to modify this in a bit, not in like a couple episodes. So right now, this is only for guild bands. So what we can do is when we fetch the endpoint, we can get all of the guild bans, all of the guild kicks, all of the guild mutes, and etc. etc. We can get it all from one endpoint. Obviously, filtered out based off the date range, like the past 7 days. And then on the front end, we can just filter out all of the actions based on the type. And then we'll end up having a total of 3 different categories, right? And then we can just do the same thing that we did with guild bands, prepare the data, get all the labels, and then render 3 different line graphs on the analytics page. So we have analytics for guild bands, guild kicks, guild mutes, etc., etc. And we can also add like a donut, a donut. I think it's called a donut graph. It's the one where it shows the total amount of mod actions, and then it shows like, this is how, like it shows in a different color, this is how much. These are all the guild bands. These are all the mod log, not mod logs, guild kicks, and these are all the guild mutes. Okay, so that's pretty much it when it comes to kicking users. It's pretty straightforward. And obviously, if I were to join the server again, and let me join again. Okay, and if I were to kick the user again, you're gonna see it's going to create another record in the database, and obviously we'll modify this so we get different forms of data as well for the chart. All right, and that's just pretty much it. So in the next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a mute command, and that's going to include setting up a role to actually mute the user, setting up the permissions, and then actually muting the user, so that way they cannot type in the channel. It's going to be pretty easy. And then once we do that, we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to go ahead and mute the user. We're going to create a mod log, and it's just going to have a type of mute. And once we're done with setting up all the commands, all the moderation commands, which I think we'll only have like mute. That's I don't really think we'll have anything else. Once we're done with that, we'll go over to the Nest.js backend. We'll configure. We'll set up an endpoint that will fetch all the moderation logs. Okay, so I'll give us back every single moderation log and its type. Okay, and then we're gonna have to go to the front end. We'll do the same thing that we did to get all of the labels and the correct data, but we'll make it so that we'll filter out all of the we'll filter out it into mutes and then into kicks as well. So we'll basically have a total of 2 arrays at the current moment, just to show you all how it's going to work. Once we have the mutes separated from the kicks, we'll render it with chart.js, and then once you guys see how that works, we'll slowly migrate. Well, not slowly, but we'll migrate away from guild ban. The guild ban entity, and we're just gonna change it to mod log, so that way all of the guild bans will fall under the same entity as the kicks and the mutes. So we'll fetch one endpoint, get all the data, and then prepare the data in a way that we can render 3 different graphs. Okay, so this is a little bit more. This is actually a lot more scalable. So hopefully you will understand why we're doing it like this instead of just having 3 entities, 3 endpoints, and just fetching 3 endpoints. It's going to become a nightmare to maintain and scale. So that's going to be pretty much it for this video. I'll see you all in the next episode where we're going to set up the mute command. Peace out.